This is the Grapple of Your Eye podcast, episode 14, Jon Bell. Welcome to the Grapple of Your Eye podcast, episode 14. My guest today is Jon Bell, and we're going to discuss his martial arts career through to what he's doing now with all his research into the injuries of the sport, etc. But we'll have more on that a bit later on. First of all, Jon, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you for coming on, taking time out your very busy schedule. Now, our first question is normally the same if it's your first time on the show. Where did it all begin for you? When did you first become aware of martial arts or whichever it might have been that caught your eye first?
Well, a little bit like yours, actually, when we were talking off the record. The local club, wasn't it? It was whatever was more local to you. And for me, it was kickboxing and a judo club as well. So probably like 11, 12, a little bit of judo, a little bit of kickboxing. And I was lucky enough as well to start a little bit of freestyle wrestling, which is quite rare. And I did that for a couple of years till, alcohol and cigarettes and stuff entered my life. And then I just stopped all that. And then at 16, I joined the military. And then I kind of got back into the kind of swing of things, the fitness side of life. And then I started boxing. And that's mainly just because the military absolutely hammers it, isn't it? It's just like, it's just a way of doing extra fitness and, keeping yourself busy. I did that for a couple of years, very average at best. And then on one of my tours of Afghanistan, I was in like a really remote area in this compound called Compound 17. It didn't even have a proper name. And it was me, someone that was under my command, and then about 20 Estonian guys, because we were working obviously with Allied forces. Like nothing there. It's literally just a farmhouse that we put some barbed wire around, and they were still laying claymores, and we had a scaffolding for the watchtower, and there wasn't much to do. We made like a makeshift gym out of like breeze blocks, like a tempo going across one of the corners for pull-ups, and they used to start wrestling like really near the gym. I say the gym, the corner of mud with some breeze blocks, and I used to watch it while I was like doing my bicep curls and my pull-ups. And I was like, oh, that looks really good. But at the same time, I thought it'd be funny to mock it, so they said, "Do you want to have a go?" And I like gave myself a WWF or WWE now wrestling name. I gave myself a theme tune, and then I got beat up about 6 months by these really talented Estonian guys. But by the end of it, I actually really started to love the sport, and because I'd done a bit when I was younger, like it was kind of, I wasn't completely useless, and I just really enjoyed it, and it just the mental side of it, from like obviously the other things that were happening out on tour, it really helped. And then I started to align it when I got back to England. I realised how much it helped me when I was out there, how much I enjoyed it. So I would look for local clubs. Obviously, I was actually based in southwest Wales, so nowhere. I'm from York, so really far away. So I was kind of like here or there, really struggling to get freestyle or Greco-Roman wrestling. So I did a bit of judo again, and then when I left the military a couple of years after that, I started wrestling again. So that's where I've freestyle wrestling, BJJ. pretty much where my background. I did a bit of catch wrestling as well, and that was maybe about 12 years ago now. So like
Hmm.
12 years of solid kind of participation in the sport. And yeah, it's like I think like everyone who does it, it's such kind of like an important part of your life, and you don't really even understand how important it is till maybe you get injured and have some time off, or like somebody tells you, like people mock you, they're like, "What are you doing tonight, John?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going wrestling, or I'm coaching wrestling," and they're like, "Yeah, we know," and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's like literally all you do, isn't it? That's pretty much it."
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been such an important part of my life, and like leaving the military as well. Like a lot of people from the time I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, um, and just kind of like helping me kind of like balance my emotions and anxiety and all the excess energy that normally goes negatively if you don't use it productively.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's like incredibly important to me and has been for a while.
So how did you find then training, like when you're in sort of in the military and you're training there, and obviously your normal military actions that are going on, and then
Yeah.
you're stepping away from that and you're just going into like a normal gym, at the end of the road, and they're doing wrestling there or jiu-jitsu there or whatever. How did that transfer? Because I imagine there'd probably be different sort of levels of energy, maybe.
Um, I think yeah, it wasn't even like the intensity of training. It was more anxiety about being around big groups. I think the post-traumatic stress at that time was really quite bad, but I didn't really understand it anywhere near as well as I do
Okay.
now. I didn't really know how to manage it. So it's quite a big step. And I've always been relatively shy as well to just go into a gym, like with having to be back into York and Wales and stuff, to then go into a gym where I don't really know anybody. You don't know the level of how everyone's been training. You don't really know
Yeah.
kind of the ethos of the gym, and you just don't know the people. And it's a really big step to step through those doors. And I think that was a
Oh,
bit of a barrier
100%.
for
Yeah.
me for a while. I didn't train as much as I could or I wanted to because there were days that I would have my kit in my bag and have my wrestling boots, and I'd want to go and I just couldn't get myself to go. And I was just like, and then you feel worse, don't you? Because you feel like you've let yourself down, and then so you
Oh,
kind of get
100%.
stuck.
I know exactly. Well, not to your extent, but I've been out with I've got something wrong with my sort of leg or my knee, and I've got the MRI results this Tuesday after sort of nearly 2 years of
Yeah.
physio and them trying to work out what it is and whatever. So hopefully I might finally get some answers. But the
I'd
odd
probably get
times
the
I've
help.
gone back in just for the tech classes have
Yeah,
just been like it's suddenly everyone's new. The people you do aren't. But
yeah.
yeah, it can be a bit nervy.
I think it's worse than BJJ actually because there's a ranking system, isn't there? I'm not a big fan of the ranking system because it almost like puts a level of hierarchy to stuff, doesn't it? And I don't know if that's coming out of the military kind of thing, but that level of hierarchy of here's this blue belt, here's this. 'Cause I think it's even more demoralizing when you get injured and you come back, or if you feel like you're not getting promoted over how and other people have. I think it can be quite demoralizing sometimes. And then it's that whole joke that's been going around for years that people just want a blue belt and then they'll leave because they've kind of you put the time in to get a blue belt at maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, but you're kind of fed up, so you get your belt and then you go. Where in freestyle it wasn't really like that because like it was just it's a bit like people who've been doing it for 15 years are amazing technically, but when you start getting old, obviously in freestyle it's so physical that you still can't really put up the same type of was it? Well, I was going to say resistance, but you can't go to the same intensity, can you? So like, um, it's it was more BJJ that I think I got not put off with, but I really struggled with going with wrestling. I just kind of like, I think, and again, this is purely subjective, so my own opinion,
Yeah.
but I think wrestling's a lot more working class. Um, and I think BJJ, depending, obviously there's lots of different clubs and it's a lot more popular, but there's certain branches of BJJ chains that are probably marketed to a slightly there's a different tax bracket, really, isn't there? And I think stuff like that was local to me at the time, and it was a bit. bit off-putting. In terms of intensity in the training, I didn't mind it. I was just happy to get there. Like,
Yeah.
looking back now, it's the fittest I've ever been in my life. But I didn't know it at the time. You never know it at the time. So like, it didn't really play. Yeah, it was fine. It was just getting there and talking to people, and after that first 10 minutes, where you realise you've settled in and you've got yourself a partner that seems normal,
Yeah.
you're just like, oh yeah, good. It's going to be a good night. But yeah, that
Okay. So you've gone back then. You've got yourself. You're back now. You're attending regularly now. What happened from there then? Where did it grow from there? So you're sort of wrestling. You've got a bit of BJJ going on. Where does this
um,
journey take you from this point?
all over because my career that kind of really alters my training. So I did military really good. I paid for my undergrad degree. I got my PGCE. Did like a research masters. Got loads of letters in my name now, which I never thought I would do. Just from year like built up over the 12 years of me leaving. Um, like doing like research for the PhD and like crash test dummies and impact, and it's all like gone way beyond what I could thought I could ever do. But to kind of get that, I had to move around a lot. So like
Yeah.
I wanted to lecture because if you're a university lecturer, you obviously have a really good scope to do research because you need an ethical panel. You
Hmm.
need some grants for stuff, and you need some time. And as a university lecturer, you get that. So it's like just the perfect place if you wanted to do research. Um, so I moved down south to Northampton to get a job to as a lecturer. I went to Norway. That was with my partner there. But I let like again. I did some lecturing out there, and then I went up to Middlesbrough, which is the closest that I've been to my hometown of York. And then finally, I got to Leeds Beckett Uni, and that was like 4 years ago, maybe now. Which again is just down the road from York. So like that was all for my career path and providing for my family and so forth. But that heavily impacted how I could train because I found a
Yeah.
club, then I had to move, or you move to a city and they don't have anything there. Um, and so I've always kind of either been at a wrestling club or a BJJ club.
Oh,
And I even got to do some catch wrestling for like 3 or 4 years as well. But it's always been quite sporadic in terms of competing. I managed to I've won some well, I've won stuff that I'm proud of. I don't know
yeah.
how it is on the whole, but I've won like the United World Wrestling Grappling National Championships, and that was like for a place in the UK, but in the GB team to go off to compete in
Hmm.
Kazakhstan. I've won lots of stuff in freestyle wrestling, like national level stuff. Um, I've done, and again, it's very what's the word, saturated now. But I was on the kind of like the invitational circuit when it had just come out, and it wasn't like once every week. And I won a few stuff on that. And then the last few years, I haven't really. Oh well, no, I was about a year ago because technically I still am the current UK United World Wrestling grappling champion because the next one hasn't happened yet. It happens in about a month. So for another
Yeah.
month, I'm still. um, so yeah, it's been about a year since I've competed, and that's just because I'm coaching a lot now, and I think that's pretty much me now. Maybe like I'm coaching
Yeah.
at Back Company in Leeds, the famous Muay Thai gym. They've just moved place into an amazing new facility. I'm coaching in my local club in York as well, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think that's probably why I'm getting more enjoyment out at the moment. I don't really have a desire. I don't really get excited about the thought of driving 2 hours to a competition. And
Yeah.
freestyle's really bad as well. I don't know if you've ever competed in freestyle theatre. The 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 competitions aren't as well organised, but they're a lot cheaper. If you go to, I won't name any promotional names. If you go to a very well-known promotion in the UK for BJJ, you pay quite a lot of money now to what it used to be, but it's quite slick. Like you probably get all your matches within 15, like with about 15-minute break, and it all goes through really
Yeah.
well. really nice medal. It's not like freestyle. You'll be there about 8 hours for about 4 matches. They'll be like 2.5 hours apart. You get really hyped up, have your match, and then the adrenaline will completely wear off, so you're exhausted. Then you pump yourself up again. You do that about 4 times, and like it's physically it's incredibly draining. And like I have not got the desire to do that on the weekends anymore. Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. How have you found it then with coaching compared to being the student walking through the door? Now you're the coach they're walking in to meet. How's that been for you?
I really usually it's pretty much my job in that. I'm a lecturer.
Yeah, like lecturer anyway. Yeah, and how
Yeah,
does it
so like,
match to that as well? Actually,
I like it. Well, with lecturing, we all know as well as a teacher, you have subjects. Well, it's not subjects because you teach in the departments. I teach in the rehabilitation and health professionals department. So it's only giving you a certain scope. But you do teach. You can teach over different degrees, like the sports medicine masters, the sports and exercise therapy undergrad and physiotherapy undergrad. But within there's different modules, and some you get really excited about, and you're like, oh yes, I can't, I'm really. And then some are, yeah, you're a bit like, let's just get through this.
oh yes,
But with wrestling, it's obviously a subject that I love. So it's like something that I've never been like, oh, I can't be bothered today. And they are days where you're just completely drained, or you've got a lot of excess work that you should really be doing in the evening, or again, taking my daughter out somewhere, spending time with her, and you are a bit like, oh, I shouldn't really be coaching wrestling tonight. But on the whole, it's just really exciting, and it's so good. It's so good to see people win competitions, especially with something you've taught them, and like they're there thanking you. You just like, yeah, it's such a good feeling. It kind of goes like quite hand in hand with being a parent as well. It's a bit like you see your kid do something that you've like get better at reading when you spend time,
yeah.
practicing in the room. I don't know if it's comparable, but it's just as good, I would say, but in a different way.
No, that's fair enough. Fair enough. So, as well as the coaching, then, as you say, you got this lecture thing and your research. So, tell us a bit about that, because having a quick look at what you've been doing, there's this real. You've been a very busy man.
Yeah, I do. I love research. It's kind of why, like I said, why I got into lecturing because
Yeah.
it makes it so much easier. It's very hard to do actually if you're not in that sort of position. So like, I was doing sports medicine for GB wrestling, kind of sports medicine and kind of performance aspect as well. And I realised I attended the National Conference of Combat Sports, the Combat Sports National Conference. The words, but in the different in from up there, and it was the basis of the British Society of Sports and Exercise Association or something like that. Again, it's an association, not a society. And so it was like it's a really good thing that people who are researching combat sports just go, they present what they've, a couple of presenters will say, this is, that I've just got this published, this is what we thought here, the practical applications, this is how you can go away and do it. There's a mixture of coaches and researchers and some athletes as well. And I met quite a few people there, like Dr. Chris Kirk from Sheffield Hallam Uni, and we were spitballing ideas. And then again, I just came up with some ideas that I could do in wrestling because I had the group, I had the British wrestlers, I have like the ethics panel at Leeds Beckett, and I'll have some people that are also enthusiastic that could help me with it and then give me a bit of confidence as well because I hadn't really done much since then and at that point. So I just started kind of like pumping out foundation research. So still good research, but when there's no research in a subject, a bit like we were talking about football before, there's so much research now that it would be hard to do something novel. Where in British wrestling, and then I moved on to grappling, so I've done some BJJ stuff now. There's not really anything. You can pretty much just start at the bottom, like an epidemiology, for example. Okay, so what injuries do people get? What body parts that it happen to, and like to how much basically. So you've got injury incident rate. So in injury, if you're ever looking at research, these are the two things you look for. Simplify research if anyone's never looked at it before. The injury incident rate would be how many times somebody got injured over a set amount of times. So we do 1,000 athletic exposures, or you can do over 1,000 hours. They're technically two different equations. And then you obviously, if you're going to do a population side, you do like 300 people or whatever, like 350 people, like I think I got thereabouts. And then it's just an equation to find out statistically how many times people got injured over a set amount of time. It'll come out like 3.4. So there's 3.4 injuries for every 1,000 hours of training, something like that. And then you've got prevalence, which is pretty much just a list of body parts, the ankle joint, knee joint, the shoulder and hip. But you can break it down to a bit more than that. That's a bit like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. We kind of get rid of a big list. And then it's percentage. So, and I've made my maths really easy here, so I don't embarrass myself. 25 out of 100 injuries happen to the knee. And then, therefore, you've got your prevalence rate of 25%. So that's what it'll see. So say knee brackets 25%, and that's pretty much all it is. So but then what that lets us do is compare it to other sports now. So now it can be like, right, so what's the number one injury area in BJJ or wrestling? Oh, it's the knee. Okay, so 40% of all injuries happen to the knee. Let's look at what other sports that's like. And there you can see what injury prevention programs other sports have done for that. So football, there's a lot of knee injuries. There's something called FIFA 11 Plus, which is an injury prevention program that I think came out of Barcelona, actually, the team. And FIFA put it together with all like their head medical professions. And it was like a warm-up to help lower knee injuries or lower limb injuries. And then there's been lots of studies to show that it works, basically. People who do it have less injuries than people who do. And there's lots of research over a number of years. So it's pretty much like, why don't we now steal some of their protocols? Because we know that the knee's the highest injury, and put them in warm-up for wrestling. So we went one further.
Makes sense,
another study where we've literally got a whole injury prevention program for wrestling now that I put together. But that's kind of like what you do with it. So when people are like, oh, well, what does research actually mean? Like, what can you do with it? Well, it's so you can actually, you need to see what the problem is before you can do anything about a problem. And that's basically what I started with is, okay, so what are the problems in regards to injury? But I also found out how they happened. Was it takedowns? Was it submissions? In freestyle wrestling, it's being took down. In BJJ, it's submissions, particularly the armbar. So now we know that. So we can say that to a coach. By the way, the number one injury in BJJ is the armbar. So when you're coaching armbars, maybe, really kind of highlight that. Good.
The safety of it.
Safety. So there's loads of stuff you can take for it in like a club level or an individual level. And I think that's what I've struggled with, basically. It's got loads of attention in these conferences and presenting. The next one I'm presenting is at the Women in Exercise and Sports Conference, the international one, so to do a bit of my research with the menstrual cycle and injuries within women grapplers. But in terms of like getting it out to the masses of, look, this might be interesting. You could take this away from it. Why don't you try these exercises in your warm-up? It's been a bit of a struggle, to be fair. So like in terms of my career, it's done well because everyone looks at like conferences and what kind of paper you get it, like the impact factors, it's been good. But in terms of what I actually wanted it for, like on Gym 4 levels of here's some good advice, it's been quite hard. And I think the again, subjective, my opinion, I think it's still ruled by kind of whoever's the best at marketing on social media. Which I don't want money. I don't sell plans. I've got a job at the uni. I literally just want to get information out there, but it's hard because there's a lot of bad information going out there, but people are putting a lot of energy and marketing into it because they're obviously getting money in return from people buying plans.
They've got an angle in it.
Yeah, where I'm not going to put that much effort in because I'm not going to get any money back. I'm not going to spend. But I feel from a personal point of view that still we could put a lot more kind of research based evidence into like practical aspects of BJJ. And it's not quite there yet, but it is a very new sport, isn't it, in terms of its popularity in
Yeah.
the UK, and it will take a number of years, I think, before that is the case.
I mean,
Yeah, that's it.
one of the things, oh, sorry, as I say, one of the things I've just been looking at, I did a previous episode on it, was because I work a lot of the kids I work with school have sort of SEN and have needs and that as well, and just sort of seeing across like in the gym and that, like the kids at BJJ and that, I've been looking at sort of like how ADHD, like martial arts and that can help them with focus and things like that. And I did a sort of about 20-minute episode on it because again, I'm no expert. I just sort of found all the research that was out there, put it together in a way that made sense to do it on a podcast, and just sort of gave the advice out based on that research, really. And again, that's another area I think, as well as the injury sort of side of it, I think where there could be a lot more development and a lot more like implementation. But like you say, it's how that's done, and the what's the word, the reasons behind it being done that way.
Yeah, it is. I think it's always it's always a bit of luck, isn't it, and getting the right person to listen.
Mm,
And in BJJ, it's hard to know who that is at the moment because there's no, well, I guess we do to an extent now, but for example, British wrestling, it's an Olympic sport, isn't it? So
yeah.
like taekwondo, like boxing, like GB boxing, GB taekwondo, GB wrestling, they're all backed by like government funding of Sports England. But
Mm,
BJJ isn't. It's not an Olympic sport, so it means that it's a little bit all over the place, um, and it could really do with kind of like, I don't know. Without being an Olympic sport, it will never come under like the Olympic Committee, and it will never be treated like kind of taekwondo and I'm sorry, and wrestling is. But something like a governing body association that had a lot of power would be amazing for something like that. Going
yeah.
into schools, getting grants from the government, setting a scheme up to go into schools and actually putting lessons on for kids as well from all types of kind of like backgrounds. You could look at underprivileged, you could look at kind of disabilities, and that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Like,
Oh,
but
100%, yeah.
how do we even get the ball rolling? Like, how does that ball even like get rolling for that to happen? And I've seen some of the research. I've seen a lot of the research in like BJJ for mental health and stuff, and it's all incredibly positive, isn't it? And I've seen
Yeah.
people using it as a way of marketing the mental health stuff, like, get down to so and so BJJ, here's some, it's great for your mental health and stuff. And that is good. That is really good. But like, again, I thought like the NHS took on yoga, didn't it? And meditation as a way of something that they actually put forward and as like an actual treatment for lots of different things. Again, could the right person or the right body could push that forward as well to the NHS for something like BJJ participation. Like there's loads of things. There's a million things that could be done. It's just a little bit frustrating, isn't it? Because even though the sport's growing, it's growing very much, I think, in the ways that a lot of people are making a lot of money of it. And there's other ways that it could also go as well to benefit a lot more people. Where at the moment it's a bit like, do you remember when CrossFit got big and it just went everywhere and a
Yeah.
lot of people made a lot of money, didn't they? But then there's been a bit of a crash and now something else is out, High Rocks, and that's now like, I don't like, who knows, will BJJ be this big in 5 or 6 years? Is this the time that schemes like this need to be put into
Yeah.
place because the opportunity is going to be lost? Like, it's
That's what I mean. Yeah,
exciting.
it's a prime time, like you say. The bubble. There will be a Black Friday on jiu-jitsu at some point. The bubble will burst, and then it will sort of just be well,
Always
whatever
comes.
the next thing is that someone wins the UFC with, uh, or
Uh,
whatever it might be next.
There'll be a big push for
But
stand up.
what
Push for stand
so
up.
what other research have you been doing then? So you sort of looked
Uh,
into that
I've
and
got
the injury side of it.
but I've got something that is so exciting, but like a constant headache as well. So I was actually talking about it the other day to a few UFC fighters, down at Bad Company in Leeds, where I coach. But I also do all the research for GB Muay Thai and
Yeah,
help like them with sports medicine, but predominantly trying to get research off the ground because again they're not an Olympic sport, so they don't work the same way that their association. So
yeah,
I'm trying to put loads of research forward for them, so they can kind of always be treated like GB boxing is. In combat sports, GB boxing and GB taekwondo are like they're like the gold man. Everyone wants what they've got. Like they've all got great facilities. They've got like paid coaches, so an S&C coach on the payroll, a
yeah,
physio on the payroll, and that's kind of the structure that everyone wants. So with Lisa and Richard, um, the people who founded and now co-own. They're now co-owned because the new players have got some investors and so forth. But they're pretty much our bad co. We sat down and we talked about the research that needed to be done for the society, and basically from that, I started doing some like basic studies, some epidemiologies. But I'd already had something on the go that I've been using with BKC, so Bare-Knuckle Boxing.
and I call yeah,
Yeah, I've been doing the medical stuff for them for quite a few years. Um, and so I've got these mouth guards that we've been, Leeds Beckett have been using them in rugby league because we're Northern, so there's no real union around here, thank God. For rugby league for a number of years for the safety aspect. So it's got an accelerometer in. So it measures head linear acceleration and angular acceleration in impact. So basically, they've been using them in real time. So if somebody, it's hard to show you. Basically, they've got an app that you can put on your iPhone or an iPad, and it's incredibly user friendly. You pretty much got a head, and it shows you where the impact came, and it shows you what the angular acceleration was in linear, and then it shows at the top you've got like overall impact, and then you've got kind of like in Newton's what the force was. So you can see what the load is of someone's head all the way through the game. It's also got a threshold alert. If someone goes above 50, it alerts you automatically, a bit like an alarm. And that means, take them off, or at least take them off and give them a concussion test.
yeah.
So they're using it in real time. What I've been using the mouth guards for, I can manage to get a grant the other year now. And it's just a measure between different combat sports because we don't know. So I was really curious what the head impacts are like in bare knuckle boxing without gloves to glove boxing and MMA with the 4 ounce gloves. Um, and it's been really interesting so far. Like really interesting. And I don't have enough data yet. And obviously we go for publication. But like my initial kind of findings are um, they don't hit that hard in bare knuckle. But basically, we've always known that a small surface area like a knuckle will cause more damage in terms of laceration than a big surface area. It's a bit like a knife.
Yeah,
You don't have to push a knife very hard for it to pierce the
make
skin.
it down. Yeah,
That's like a knuckle. So basically, bare knuckle looks horrible. I know, coming in the medical room after with the stitching, people get really cut up. If, I don't know if you see my Instagram page, you'll see some of the cuts. They're quite extreme. Um, but that's not what causes necessarily concussion or like long-term injuries like diffused injuries. So where the absence in the brain is kind of like scar tissue that are joined together, and it's what causes things like dementia or like symptoms of like traumatic brain injury. What
yeah,
causes that is like a whiplash effect or acceleration. So, for example, there were without naming names because it's obviously all behind ethics at the moment. We had a Muay Thai fighter fighting on quite a big event, like a really big event actually.
yeah,
Paired it, and he was not very heavy. Let's say I don't want to give weights away because again, probably quite easy to find out who it was. And then at KFC we had a heavyweight, obviously a light heavyweight. Either way, there was a good 40 kilograms difference in weight, and the Muay Thai fighter, oh, he's wearing that's a big thing. Then he's got the Thai fighter was wearing a 4 ounce
yeah,
glove, like they do in one championship. Um, and the Muay Thai fighter, even though he weighed 40 kilograms less than the bare-knuckle boxer, was getting hit just as hard in terms of the head
Oh man,
impact. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
that's
that would be. Oh, do you think then that I was just checking my notes because I've forgotten what it was called, but there was the thing a while back in the pro wrestling thing with the wrestler Chris Benoit, who
oh
then went
yeah,
on. They had the whole incident with the tragedy where he sort of killed his family, and then they
yeah,
looked at his brain, and apparently it was like Swiss cheese, and he
yeah.
had the
I
brain,
mean,
or they say they had the brain of an 80-year-old or something like that. So is
yeah,
that
yeah,
obviously something? That was quite a sort of a public version, I guess, of that. And like you
yeah,
say, these other things that are occurring, but it's one match there, one match there. It's the build up of it isn't being. Now it sounds like you're doing some really good work because
yeah. It's slow. Um, it's slow and slow work. Can you imagine the logistics? And the team's quite small. It's me, and I'm going off a
yes,
stand. I don't have money just to throw at it. I've got a very tight budget, really, and like because these mouth guards are like £300 a pop, um, and they need to be dental fitted as well. So there's the logistics of getting a
right.
fighter
So they do
in,
the thing, yeah,
and then so like it's going slow, but that's kind of what we want to do. But the main goal would be to then use the mouth guard in real time as a safety precaution to be like because we will still get those threshold alerts. And a bit like in rugby, even if it's stop the fight or if that's too much, stop the fight briefly so the doctor can quickly run in, give a concussion test, and then start the fight again.
yeah,
If
yeah.
if it's not a quick concussion, but use it for safety. 'Cause at the moment, we're not there yet in combat. I'm not anywhere near there in combat sports. It's just very much just seeing what the impacts are, just so we can, we have some sort of data there.
Well, like you say, well, you've got that ground level data then that you can then
Yeah,
build on and develop and
but
see where
it's
tangents
very
off to.
interesting
Yeah,
with the gloves. I think not to go too far away from grappling, but um, people are really surprised by that bare knuckle boxers aren't hitting each other as hard. They're not hitting each other as hard and as much, so frequency and magnitude basically.
mm,
But gloves were never, if you look into the history of it, gloves were never meant to protect anyone. It all came from when like gentlemen, so the slightly upper class people that were going in and doing boxing as a hobby, didn't want to have black eyes or cuts and things like that associated
yeah,
with bare knuckles, because again, it would be frowned upon in Victorian times. So they developed kind of like this glove to stop that from happening. When it obviously no one was there, but the way again it's been, I've read it from historians, combat historians. There was no intention ever for it to be a safety thing. So like it's now just got a perception that gloves are safer. But if you put some gloves on, if you wrap your hands and compress your hand, if you ever had your hand wrapped, your hand feels invincible, doesn't it? I did some
yeah,
amateur MMA about 10 years ago that was shortly lived. But from that, I had my like yeah, when your hands are strapped in, when you've got the glove on. Imagine then if I just said go and hit the wall. If you had gloves on and your hand flaps, you could hit the wall pretty hard for a long time. If I didn't strap your hand at all and you just had bare knuckles and I said go and hit that wall, you're not gonna hit it as hard or for as long. Even I know people like, yeah, but the adrenaline of a match, it's not that because you don't want to break your knuckles. So a lot of bare knuckle boxers break their knuckles. Um, so you have to be. It's tactical to be cautious. You can't just go
yeah.
out there and break your wrist in the first 10 seconds. So it's just really interesting. It'll be groundbreaking research as well. It's just a bit of a struggle. Like you were there, Tom Aspinall and his dad, and there was a few UFC fighters or people that are quite high, like well-known presenters and stuff for this
Yeah.
promotion that was happening. And I was talking to them about it, and they'd never even heard of this technology. Like it's one of those things where you presume it is places already, and I'm not using it in MMA. I'm using it in Muay Thai and bare knuckle boxing. I just presumed with all the money in the UFC they were using technology like this, and they were just like, nope, never heard of it. They were literally just like baffled that we had that the technology was there, and like you just kind of forget sometimes like we're so far behind in combat sports because the money has never really been there, has it?
Yeah,
millions.
well, it's that double-edged sword. The money's not always been there, and also, does everyone want everyone to find out everything? Because it might take
Yeah,
away the
yeah.
showmanship of it. Not being horrible. I'm not saying everyone's like that at all, but like that sort of,
Well,
it's the old boxing thing. That oh, just put him out for one more round, dose him up, he'll be all right.
yeah, I get you've got that, and it's kind of like that bare knuckle. Bare knuckle want the research, or BKFC specifically want the research because they don't have it's not licensed, is it? So they can put forward an actual publication from me, and then probably some other people. Well, will be from some other people as well that know a bit about it. They can argue that this boxing is licensed and bare knuckle has been shown to be safer. Then they should really be licensed, shouldn't they? And that's why
Well,
they
yeah, and
want.
it shows them as a caring organisation and promoter as well, then in the public eye,
Yeah,
because they've commissioned this research, blah blah blah, and we care
yeah,
about our fight, the public perception. That's the
but at the same time, it's the commission, isn't it, that deals with it, not the promotion,
yeah.
but the commission, the referees decide when a match is ended. But again, you do see some matches in BKFC where just like that should have been ended 4 knockdowns ago. Like
Yeah,
that comes to mind, which I won't name it, but there's one that I was just like, that was just a slaughter. That was like gladiatorial kind of. That guy should have. I mean, voluntarily stood back up. Obviously, they won't make him stand back up, but like,
yeah.
geez,
What 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 do you make of the power slap thing?
that's probably the worst thing. And like I mentioned before, we know that angular rotation, so angular acceleration of the head, is the worst possible thing when it comes to brain injury. And that is all it is, max power. Max power head rotation. For
I know
those.
it's like I didn't want to watch it, but then I do. It's like watching a car crash or something. It's just that thing of like it's terrible, and you can see it happening as
Yeah,
each slap's going across. You can see the long-term damage happening,
I
and it's
don't.
just like
The only one that I found slightly entertaining, because I know the severity isn't anywhere near, is the low kick one. You've seen the low kick one? I can't remember what the
no, I'm not
promotion,
sitting there like it.
but they pretty much you get people from like a karate guy and a Muay Thai guy, and they just kick each other's thighs until one person gives up. That is actually surprisingly quite entertaining, and you know that there's not really going to be any long lasting damage.
Yeah, so I think yeah,
Power slap, you just like, what are they doing? Like,
yeah. I think,
yeah,
but that is the draw of it because you can see how bad it is, and people are just I don't know. It's almost like one of those like you've been framed sort of things. You can see it's going to happen. You can see what it's going to be, but you need to watch it to see it, and then you go, "Yeah, that is as bad as I thought it was going to be." And it's I don't know. I find it very weird because I don't like it at all, but I end up like especially now. I think what they've done is they've made a sport that is brilliant for the TikTok viral internet community now because that's what it gets shared on. I imagine half the time, and sort of kids go, "Oh, look at that," and then it becomes a thing. And luckily, we haven't had to stop it in the playground yet.
yeah, yeah. Literally when you said that, when you mentioned TikTok, I was literally thinking, well, what's the impact going to be on
Mm.
kids doing it in the playgrounds? I mean, that is bad, but like, I just remember when I was younger, everyone was like tombstoning and pedigreeing and
Do you remember the Tango advert?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say kids will be kids, won't they? No matter what, no
yeah,
matter
that's
what is
true.
out there. But still, power slap is just what is. Yeah, I just don't. I don't really understand how that came from like quite a niche Eastern European sport that you used to see on YouTube, something like or Instagram, to like actually being bought. Like there's promotions in the UK now, isn't there? And obviously there's a big one that Dana White bought, and it's not. I don't see how it's a sport. It's just yeah.
What I loved about it as well, when it first started, they had. I did watch the first couple because it was. If you haven't seen it, watch the first couple because they have all the analysis people and they're explaining like because like we have to present this as a sport. That's the gimmick is like we need in this episode it's not just two guys slap each other in the face, and he's talking about like the diameter of the arm and the pivot speed of the waist in conjunction with the angle of the arm, and they've really got the whiteboard out, and they're like, look at his arm here and his speed there and all that, and they've desperately tried to make it the sport element of it, and you can see it. No, it's just two
You know
guys
what would
slapping
be
really hard.
amazing? Uh, those mouth guards, to see how hard they hit each other, the mouth guards will tell you exactly how hard.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm definitely not bidding for a grant to put mouth guards in power slappers. That's
no, 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 no.
would be interesting though, wouldn't it? But yeah, yeah, it's a bit like you get all the illegal type. Well, I don't know if they're illegal because they're not all in England, but the street fighting stuff like the King of the Street, where it's kind of like any rules go. I think maybe eye gouging and biting or something is
Oh
out.
yeah.
It's pretty much concrete floor. Two people just fight. You can soccer kick people in. I don't know why I said soccer. Football kick in the people's head. And like again, that is you just look at it and you just like you've took it too far again. Like it's just it always has to be took a little bit too far, doesn't it? And you just like
Well, you see some of those Russian ones now, and there's like the team MMA ones and the 5-on-5s in the
I
cage and
think a
all
lot,
those
yeah,
sorts of things.
there's a lot coming out of Poland as well, isn't there? As well, they've tried everything. Have you seen the one where? And again, I, I'm just going off what I read. I don't know how true it is, but I did see the footage. There's one in Poland where if you miss weight, you get your father to fight with you as well. So it's you and your dad
I
against.
did see that actually. Yeah, it's,
It's like,
it's all the gimmicks of it. I think. Yeah, they're just trying to think of a new way to do it, I suppose. And again, it's all of it nowadays is it's got to be social media digestible, and that's why I think that power slap thing's taken. I think Dana White sees that because he's for a lot of things he's not an idiot. He is the Simon Cowell of mixed martial arts, but he sees where a buck can be made and probably um that sort of thing, you know. And like you say, now there's the father-in-law in. I'm sure there was one where it's a guy and two women for something as well. I can't remember if it was his wife and I can't remember. But again, they're
yeah,
doing all these sorts of things now, and it's getting crazier and crazier.
yeah, it was like
But
that Eddie Hall against those two influencers. And I think together they
oh
weighed
yeah,
the same, which is like they both weighed 50 kilograms and they all weigh more than
yeah,
Eddie Hall. But yeah, basically, yeah, both of them added together either his weight or lower.
yeah,
Just,
yeah. When his shoe weighed more than they did, it's just like,
yeah,
it's like but it's the freak show thing, and I mean Japan's always been good for it in their martial arts stuff. They like the sort of giant versus the David
yeah,
Goliath type thing, and
they've always been a really good pioneer because they're not just gimmicky. They've pioneered some like if you look at Pride, but even before
yeah,
Pride, you had is it pronounced Pancrase? I think it's pronounced something like that.
pancreas or pancreas, yeah,
Yeah,
depending on who says it, yeah.
Baz Rutten, but also the person who I've learned a lot of my BJJ and catch from, Les Allen. That's he used to be in
Hmm.
Greece, and he's got a place out of Halifax now. Again, an amazing coach, and that all came over. That was all from Japan. So like they've actually put tons of good stuff forward, but at the same time, every
Yeah,
now and
there's
again,
the
like you
wacky
said,
bit as well.
yeah, you get a wacky bit. Yeah.
No, no, it's very good. What about yourself though? What are you looking for? Obviously, you've got this research going on. What are your future plans? Have you got any other things you're looking to develop or move into, either research or as a coach or
The research, I think, this mouth guard thing is going to preoccupy me for a long time, just because it's going to take to get the amount of data where you can say something with a relative amount of confidence. It's going to take a
yeah,
while, and again, it's going to need more grants, and I'm going to need fighters who've got the mouth guards that ideally fight again, and we know like fighter turnaround, especially in boxing and stuff. It's quite a long time, so
yeah,
like just a lot of kind of waiting. So what I'm probably going to do is start merging together. So I've already been talking to some of the people I've done stuff in the past from Sheffield Hallam, and they're doing a lot of pupillometry. So it's where you'll it's kind of like a very high tech version of when a doctor or a physio or whoever shines a torch in your eyes to see if your pupils are.
hmm,
We've got fancy machines now that like give you all sorts of statistics. Like they'll do it and it'll go to a computer and give you like the exact level and stuff. So Chris has been
okay,
doing a lot of research in like in sparring to see like what like how concussed people are just from sparring in different sports. So we're talking about merging the two together. So we had a phone call on Friday, and we said, let's do it. So it will happen. So be able to see, then we'll be able to see how many impacts it might take, or what level of impact it takes to be concussed. And like we might be able to start linking equipment together and actually to
Oh,
get
okay.
be able
Yeah,
to
that's what you mean. Yeah,
um so we're going to explore that, but like all research where it starts, it's just you're just exploring it, and you've done or you shouldn't go in knowing what, like, with an idea of what you're going to find. Maybe
yeah,
find it, if it's obvious, that'll be a hypothesis, but again, we're just going to
yeah,
see. We're going to see what it gives us. If there's something there, we'll go forward with it. If it's not, maybe we think and do it with slightly different methodology, or we'll just be like, bin that off. That's not going to happen. That's not going to work. So yeah, there's a few things, but it'll probably all be focused off these mouth guards. In terms of grappling research, I think I've probably had enough now for a while. The three publications that I've got with grappling, and by my last one, I'm getting a little bit frustrated about how I don't really ever see any practical outcomes when I've done stuff in other sports. Coaches are a lot better at, like, it
yeah,
seems more into the sport and you make an impact, and you're like, because research takes a long time. Each paper is probably about a year long, maybe longer, of actually just constantly feeding into it, doing your data collection, analysing it, like making sure you've read every single paper possible on that theme and then when you do it, even if it gets a really good kind of welcoming academically, it's like nothing. If no one really cares in the sport that you're doing it, it adds to quite a lot of deflation, to be honest, because it's just a long period of time to do something, and then people are like, yeah, I don't care. I'm just gonna listen to this guy who's like really loud and says things really confidently and has some really good theme music. And you just like, give up. Like, so I think for now, my grappling research, there's some really good foundation stuff that I'm really proud of that out there now that people can use. And hopefully more people coming through university now can reference it and use it to build on.
yeah.
So I've done kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to set some foundation research, for people to build on. But I think I'm leaving that I'm leaving that to a side for now, and I want to concentrate more on kind of like striking sports and the Muay Thai. Now I'm over there working with GB Muay Thai, so that's probably what the future will be. I'm sure if anyone ever comes with me wanting to do a grappling study and wants my help, I'd be straight on it. I'd,
Oh,
I'd
cool.
help anyone who wanted like to get involved in that type of research, because it's still my sport. Even though I move away from it in research, it's still the sport that I do, and the sport that I'll probably be doing until I can't physically move anymore.
No, fair enough. And if anyone listening to this does want to get in touch with you or contact you about this, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, I've got my Instagram page, which just goes to me, so it's pretty much just as useful. That's my number, isn't it, nowadays? And that's Northern Grappling Co. But my work email address it's literally just my name, but it's j.j.bell, so Bravo Echo Lima Lima, then at leedsbeckett.ac UK. But if you type my name into Google, I'm pretty sure it comes up. If you type in Jon Bell Wrestling, then you'll probably find the research papers, some
Mm.
conferences I spoke at. I've done it before, obviously.
Oh, cool. I'll link them in the show notes as well,
Yeah,
then, and then people can have a look. Yeah.
it's easy to find via Google. But yeah, but by all means, even if someone just wants to do it as a dissertation and it's not going to go for publication, it's just going for their uni work, then I'm more than happy to jump on and like help them out of it, because we do need a lot more research. I think I've just kind of just 4 years of research I've done in that area now, and I think I'm ready for a bit of a change. But I'd quite happily help anybody else out if they wanted to.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, no. Is there anything else that you'd just like to sort of get into there? Because we've covered a lot, and I don't want
Um,
to take up any more of
I
your busy
I
time.
don't think that I mean, again, I kind of, and again, I don't really understand it like I'm moral signal or anything, but I think there's a lot of good we can do with BJJ, and I think that like you said, putting it into schools, using it for schemes with mental health, and there is stuff going on. But I urge like people to, if they've got the ability to kind of push that more. Yeah, I did attempt to. Northern Grappling Co started because it's a weird name to have because now there's not a lot on it to what I originally started it. It is actually a registered company that we set up to do charity events.
Mm-hmm.
So with me being ex-military, I set it up to raise money for BLESMA, so the British Society of Limbless Veterans. And it's a while ago now, it was maybe 4 years ago, we put on like a big, like, again, I don't want to say with promotion of names, but there were lots of maps. You entered via Smooth Comp. We had over 400 people enter, and
Yeah.
we made thousands for charity. And then the administration skills that needed to go into that nearly gave me just a mental breakdown. So we've never done it to that scale again, but we've had like invitationals where all the money goes to a local disabled youth charity in York, and like we use their facilities, their sport hall, we get everyone down. I've not done it for quite a long time now, just because I've been really busy. But I want to start it up again. So again, if anyone wants to help or get involved with that kind of running kind of like BJJ invitational or something maybe a bit bigger, then again I'd absolutely love some help with that because again it's time management for me. And then I'd take it like everyone does this, you take so many things on that you do everything really slowly and not to the best ability it's just best if you stick to one or two things and make sure they're done really well. So again, with the research or with any kind of charity-based schemes like that, please get in touch. I'd love to help or like kind of like collab with something. But I think that's everything.
Oh, no, thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time out to have a chat with us today. Because as I say, I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot of things going on, as you say, and
Um,
it's really appreciated that you shared all your work with us. As I say, I'll put all the things in the show notes and then link it all in the show notes for you, so people can find you and have a read of your research as well. So yeah,
that
thank you
that
very much.
that'd be amazing. But I think it's stuff like this, like what you're doing, that kind of like helps get the word out, doesn't it? And yeah, so I appreciate you giving me the time.
Thank you once again to Jon Bell for joining us for episode 14. If you go to the grappleofyoureye.com, you'll be able to see the show notes of all the links to his research and to how to contact him. And you'll also be able to see all the information on all our previous episodes and guests. So that's the grappleofyoureye.com. If you are listening to the podcast, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other podcast apps that are available. Please give us a subscribe and a review. It really does help us out. You can also watch us on YouTube. So again, if you could subscribe and then enable notifications, it will keep you up to date with everything we're doing on there. Next week, we'll be back with another guest. So in the meantime now, I've been your host, Brett Summers, and I just want you to stay safe and stay on the mats.